So welcome to another episode of the Jim's Cast, and today we're going to our topic's mental health. I know mental health is very important to you, Jim. You spend a lot of your own personal money in researching and hopefully creating an impact in that field. So let's start with that sort of as a topic today and go from there, and then I'll tell you a little bit about my background with it, which is a bit different to most. So
you have a lot more personal experience than I do, that's for sure.
I do, but I appreciate what you're doing because you don't have probably the personal experience that I do, but you're doing a hell of a lot more than what anyone else that I know personally is doing. So I appreciate what you're doing in that field. So maybe you want to tell people a bit about more why you're involved in it and what you're doing in that field.
Well, first of all, I have a very direct interest in mental health myself, and a lot of it comes out of my involvement with franchisees because it's an increasing problem we've seen in recent years. As more and more of our franchisees suffer from depression and anxiety and those kinds of issues, and we're aware of it because it's a very pastoral system. Part of Jim's, as you know, is that we keep in close contact with our franchisees. In fact, it's one of the major benefits of the system we found with time. It's not so much long-term benefits and not so much learning how to run a better business, though that we do that, but actually having a sense of community and having somebody who cares for you. And we see more and more of these issues with mental health. We had a really horrifying thing happen last year. As you know, where one of our franchisees in Western Australia killed his 3 little girls and his wife and his mother-in-law. Nothing to do with his business, actually. He actually said in his statements when he was convicted of it that the business was wonderful. It was a positive thing in his life, but he had this terrible demons inside him. And that was very deeply shocking because Jim's is a bit like an extended family. So the repercussions were right through. I went over to Perth to talk to the franchisees there. We had a big meeting, and most of the franchisees in the state were in this meeting at this Holiness Golf Club to talk about the whole thing and what had happened, and they were very, very upset by it. Not those who knew him and many who didn't. It just felt like one of your own, something so awful had happened. And they came up with a whole suggestions. I asked them, guys, what can we do? What could we do to do something about this? And they came up with some pretty good ideas. One of them was that we should prepare like a fridge sticker or something that we could send to every franchisee with emergency numbers.
Yeah, the magnet with all the numbers, yeah.
The contact numbers, which we did. As soon as I got back, we got that organised, we got these contact numbers, so that's been done. Another thing that was, they suggested that even though you've got franchisors who can talk to franchisees, sometimes franchisees might want to talk to somebody who's in the same kind of business, but not the franchisor. And so what they said is we would like to have certain franchisees appointed as mentors who could just, out of the goodness of their heart, to help people who need it. And I asked people who would be volunteering, and I was very moved that something like half the people there put up their hand and said, we would volunteer our time to help other franchisees in need. So as a result of that, what we've done is set up a program where we've got franchisees identified all over the country in every state that are actually been chosen and been selected, who volunteered, and they provide some training just to act as not so much psychologists, but just people who can be an ear and listen. Because, you come across similar problems. You have difficulties with clients, difficulties with spouses and so forth, different things that are faced by people in the field. So we put that in place. And that was wonderful. And it was so heartwarming to see so many people prepared to give up their time. And these people are wonderful. They really are. They don't get paid a zap for it. It's just all to do with, I want to help my fellow franchisees. They also... what became clear out of that was that our franchisors needed a bit more training. So we've now started a system where our new franchisors, and as many of the existing ones as possible, go through mental health training. I've done the course myself, actually. We had somebody come here, and many of my staff too, to understand how to deal with people who've got mental health problems. So we've done that. And the fourth thing, which we haven't quite got off the ground yet, we're actually providing through my institute, some free psychological counselling.
Free, okay.
Yeah, the first 3 sessions will be free. After that, they'd have to pay for it. But we do some free for them, just to help you out a bit. Here's somebody you can talk through your issues with, somebody who's a trained psychologist in this case. So all these things came out of that. I mean, I can't say they compensate for it, but if anything we can do can stop something bad like that happening again. And we do have things happening. People commit suicide. We've had that case. One of our franchisors committed suicide, and we've had a couple of franchisees kill themselves too. So it's because we're so intermeshed, because there's this sense of community in gyms, you tend to feel it very, very strongly when something like that happens.
And based on, we've got some statistics from Beyond Blue. So before we did this today, no, we're filming this on today, which is Are You OK Day. So Are You OK Day is a whole suicide prevention movement, and it's Are You OK Day right today when we're doing this. But Beyond Blue is basically 1 in 7 Australians will experience depression in their lifetime. So we have nearly 4,000 franchisees. So obviously statistically we know there's a few that were probably going through tough times at this as we speak.
No, I can tell you it's common. I would say that figure makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, and then the message: 1 in 6 Australians is currently experiencing depression or anxiety or both, and 1/4 of Australians will experience an anxiety condition in their lifetime. So it's quite extremely prevalent, and why it's important. So with your institute, maybe can we talk a bit more about the research you're doing in regards to the mental health field?
All right. Look, before we do that, can I just talk about
Sure.
what individuals can do themselves? The best defense is strong relationships, strong community. And we push that very strongly in gyms. More and more in recent times, we talk about the need to have community, which means coming to meetings, talking regularly with your franchisor, getting to know other franchisees, being part of a close group. I think the movements like the Men's Shed movement is fantastic, because men in particular tend to be more isolated, and I think the ability to come together with others.
Yeah,
and
that's
the same thing with my group. Not that we suffer for depression in my group, but people have their issues. But being part of a small group, close community, is an enormously important thing.
I'm glad you said that, Jim. The men's shed is important. The only reason I know that because my uncle runs one back home in Warrnambool. So Warrnambool's around 300 k's west of Melbourne, and a lot of the old blokes there have no one. You know, and for them it's very, very, very important, that sense of community, and they get together and have their friends there. You know, without that, who knows what would happen.
We need to be part of something. I think that's what we can do as individuals to connect with each other. And obviously things like keeping yourself fit and eating well and those kind of things have a big impact on mood, far more than most people think. Strong families.
It's interesting when you say that, because it directly relates to me, so I'm a bit different. Obviously, I wrote down some notes before I would do this just so I'd stay on track, and it was interesting to hear how much stuff you're doing in this. I didn't know, and how you've shifted your focus towards that. But my experience with mental health is a little bit different than most. You know, most people think mental health is just depression, anxiety, and obviously, unfortunately, people commit suicide. And however, there's a lot more other stuff. So for me, I was raised by a single mum who has bipolar 1. You got bipolar 1, bipolar 2, and there's schizophrenia. Now, if you've been around anyone with those, it's not an easy condition. So, for example, someone with bipolar 1, they tend to be a lot more mania. They have a lot more mania episodes than depressed episodes. You know, sexual energy, feelings of euphoria, risky behaviours. They hardly sleep, never get out of bed due to all their medication. They have a lot of electroconvulsive therapy. I don't know if you've ever seen someone have ECT, electric shock treatment, if you want to call it that way. So they put the probes on the head and they zap someone and whatever, and this whole sort of stuff. And you know, but the problem with my mum, she got diagnosed when she was young at 18, and back in the day it was lithium. Now, the problem with that is that she built a tolerance up to lithium. So the problem with her was that she's got a tolerance to lithium. ECT, all right, ECT would always work in a way, but lithium wore off, so then you have to find other drugs which aren't freely available. So a lot of issues. So basically, 23% of kids in Victoria at the moment live with a parent or a carer who has a mental illness. Now, I think in those numbers it does include depression. My experience is with bipolar 1. So for me, you know, schizophrenia, bipolar 1 are the more, you know, like that. They're the ones who, from what I know from talking to other people and the organisations I've spoken to and the people who study this, they're the ones which have the most trouble. What you're saying directly relates to this, because you do inherit a lot of stuff from your childhood from this, unfortunately. You know, and the problem with people with bipolar and that is that the kids never get treated first in the system. So what basically happens is, what happens for us, I remember when I first became aware. So a lot of times if you meet someone who was raised by a schizophrenic or by a bipolar parent, you'll find that there's a point in their life where they become an adult. So for me, it was 7 years old. I don't have a childhood up to 7, and that was it. After I became aware, so what happened with me was, this is before I knew anything about what was going on. Go and in school, in the middle of class, principal comes and says, "Oh, Joel, you got to come with me to the principal's office." He was accompanied by 2 policemen. So back in the day, being a young fella, thinking I was a bit cool. Oh, cool! I'm getting pulled out by 2 police people. It did me a lot for my school credit at the time, but then you sit into the office and they basically say your mum's in hospital. They don't tell you what's going on. So, all right, cool, you got to go to these offices. So with me and my younger sister back in the divvy van, we're actually pretty excited because, you know, you're having a ride along with the police. And the Victoria, I think it was the WA police at the time, were really good. So drive you to the local shopping centre, which has a human services department. So you get dropped off there. So you go to school with your mum being normal. Then all of a sudden you're now in a shopping centre at the human services department, and then there's a guy in a suit there. He's a 50-year-old guy in a suit, not probably the friendliest guy, and you're basically told, mum's in hospital, don't tell you what's wrong. The cops are going to take you home to get some clothes, and you're going to go live with this lady. So, okay. So you go back home, your mum's not there or whatever, and then you get taken, driven out to another suburb you don't even from, and you're basically dropped off for a lady and not told anything, and there you go. So that was my first experience. And then after that, I was made aware what was going on. In all my times, until probably the internet really came around in terms of researching from Google, I was never really told what bipolar was. The only way I knew what bipolar was by going into a lot of psych homes. So for me, what would happen is that when the person is committed to the psych ward, generally the way it happened with my mum was that police. So she had to get to a stage where she was so erratic until the police were called before they would do anything. So even if I was younger and called the whoever it was and said that my mum's on the border of having a relapse, you should get it now. No, we have to have her go to the emergency ward before we can commit her. So it was very embarrassing. A lot of the times the neighbours would somehow find her acting erratically, and they would call the cops. So basically, I've had and that was every year. Because the problem with bipolar people, and I don't know if it's for schizophrenics, is all bipolar people, once they take their medication, they're back on track. I'm good. I don't need to take my medication again. They go off their medication, they go off the rails again. Back in hospital, shop treatment pills. Back out again for 6 months, a year. I'm all good. Stop taking that. I'm back in again, back to square one. And the kids are always left like that. I've spoken to psychiatrists and psychologists. The priority is not the kids at all. I think only in 2019 they've actually started doing directives to change that, which is crazy. I'm 31, so even in 2019 they're actually starting to say, "Oh, hang on, the kid. When there's a kid involved, they're a priority." We actually had no allocated social workers when we were younger, which is surprising. A lot of kids now, I don't think they do have an allocated social worker unless they're actually in a foster home environment. So they might have. What happens a lot of the times is if the parent goes into a psychiatric ward, if there's family and friends there, they generally live with them. But the problem with us at the stage was my mum was in Perth, and the silly thing was she had 11 brothers and sisters who were in Warrnambool. And because of her condition, she wanted to be independent. She distanced herself from that. And what happened was every time she got committed, we would have to be wards of the state and go to foster homes. So all foster homes all the time and all this sort of stuff, minimal support. You still don't know what was going on. And the problem with that, with young kids and people who come from these situations, is they have a lot of PTSD, a lot of trauma. They're more inclined to use drugs. They're statistically always more likely to go to jail. A lot of kids who spend a time in a foster home or with these parents commit more crimes, all this sort of stuff. They earn less money. And there's a lot of poverty because people with bipolar and schizophrenia can't hold down a job. So my mum's been on the disability pension since, from 31 years. So we're always, we had government housing and touch wood, we had a really, thank God we had a great grandmother who paid for us to go to private school and all this sort of stuff. But up until then, it was pretty full on. It's something you never hear about. And for me, what's frustrating is that even today, the amount of platforms we have, which is like, say, Are You OK, which is Today and Beyond Blue, you never ever hear about this. You hear mental health awareness, okay? You're raising awareness for mental health.
You don't think about the kids.
They never ever ever think about the kids. And these are young people in the community who do such a great job, because without those kids, a lot of these parents, I know with my mum, she always used to say to us, I wouldn't be here if your kids weren't here. And I was threatened, dropped off with school, I won't be here when you come home, I'm going to kill myself. Imagine then trying to go to school and trying to perform, right? These are the stories and what I'm saying. The reason I'm saying this on camera is because I Google online about this sort of stuff, and there's no real organisations doing it. There's one in Victoria that I really know of. There's probably a couple more. The one I went and had spoken to, we're going to do a bit of content with them, is called Satellite Foundation, and they basically do programs, and once their kids identified, and they get them from regional areas and just make them with other kids who go through the same experience, because you don't realise how tough it is. These are young adults, even though they're 7 or 8, they're experiencing daily trauma that people have got no idea about, and they get no resources, which is my frustration, where you got Beyond Blue, Are You OK, all these mental awareness organisations. Go through their websites. How many times do you hear about this? Nothing. And these people are responsible for so many saving lives because they're just being kids. They're their parent support person. They're the ones who talk to. They're exposed to things on a daily basis, and then they're expected to act normal. The amount of times I had to go to school and I got in trouble because I've had something happen to me at home, but I can't tell the teacher because my mum says don't tell the teacher because I've got bipolar. She wants no one to know because of the stigma attached to it. So the school doesn't know. And it's quite frustrating still that in 2019 that there's no real government assistance. I know when we grew up, we didn't have a social worker unless we were in a foster home. Then when we moved over here to Victoria when we were 13, because our relatives took us in, we got no allocated support because they said, oh, cool, they're left alone. But there's various things like, I think the focus now needs to start with mental health awareness, needs to start shifting towards kids who have to live in these situations because they're statistically behind everyone. Even though I did university, statistically, I don't know what the stat is, but I shouldn't have, probably based on the stats. I was probably in a bad way. I don't know how I got over it. I'm very lucky that I had a really good. My mum's one of 11, which was good. And when we moved over to Warrnambool when we were 13, because she kept getting committed into psych wards all the time, we were always with foster families, and that was a lot of trouble happening then. But she's got a really great support network, and the support that the mental health network and all that sort of stuff and the NDIS give is quite amazing. However, the kids are still nothing. You won't see any content much online about this, which is what I'm hoping to change. Beyond Blue and these people which have all these donations and take all the attention. I'm not saying this to be selfish, but they could use their platform for so much better to raise awareness about kids, young adults and adults. And what frustrates me is I've actually spoken to people when I put something out online before, and I had people DM me saying, I didn't know you went through that. I had a similar experience. These people are going to start saying things. There's people out there who are 50, 60 years old who grew up back in the day with this stuff, who went through similar things. And I know of a couple of people who did that, yet they've got to start speaking out and using their platform. It's great that people are speaking about suicide prevention, depression and anxiety, but people need to start not being ashamed of their childhoods and all their trauma and their parent, because generally it's single parent families as well. Now that's one thing you say, harp on family. The majority of people who have a bipolar or schizophrenic family, it's always majority from a single parent families, because it's a very tough burden, obviously, on the relationship. It doesn't sting because you've got someone always in the psych ward. But it needs to be a lot more stuff done about it, and that's why I'm putting this on tape, and I'm glad you're allowing me to speak with this, because I think it's very important, and we need to start doing about it. And when you refer about purpose before, this is probably where my purpose is starting to go towards a bit now. It wouldn't have taken much. For example, like I would say to anyone who works in this field or who's actually can relate to the story, we were forced when we were younger to go to psych wards. So I spent probably 10 of my birthdays in a psych ward. So I'm in a psych ward. Mum's just had her ECT. They bring her out. She's drooling or whatever else because she's just had the treatment a couple of days ago, heavy tranquilizers and whatever else. And because it's good for her, you've got to sit there as a 6 or 7 year old and listen to your mum, tell you all these horrible things. Then you get paraded around a psych ward, and I'll meet my friend Jerry, and Jerry's got 10 cigarette burns up his arms, or meet my friend Diane. Diane's got 50 cuts. You know what I mean? So you're exposed to these traumas as a kid, and this happens all the time. This is still happening up until this day. And the mismanagement of children who have a mentally ill parent is still going on in 2019, and it's shocking. And it's to me, it's negligence by the government, because you think about it. Economically, it's bad. So we know that statistically, kids who grow up in these environments, they're less productive in society. They don't go on to further education. They earn less. They have more likely alcohol, drug dependency problems. They're more inclined to have mental illness themselves because of the genetic factors, for example. So economically, the government should do something about it, which they don't. There is hardly any funding. And the one satellitefoundation.org.au is something I recommend to look up. But just the awareness, there is none. And I feel as though the platforms that are out there saying they're mental health awareness, they aren't raising all of the mental health awareness issues. And I think people who grew up in a similar situation to mine, which there are a lot of, need to start using their platforms. There are probably people out there with some sort of media sort of background behind them who's in the media who had a similar background, but they're too ashamed to speak about it. And they really need to do it, because I think at the moment, it's great that it's Are You OK Day today, but this issue which I'm talking about now, I'm not saying this to play the victim at all, but it's not raised at all, and the government mishandles it a lot. And you're putting kids into unsafe environments. You take a schizophrenic or a bipolar, and because the way this court system works, as you said before, the parent, the primary caregiver parent, all right, we can't keep their kids away from them, because probably that's going to be the best thing, having a stable environment where they can not have this disruption. We're going to put them back into a crazy household. That's the way the government works, and we'll maybe check on them, once a week or 2 weeks. The rest of the day, you don't know what goes on, and the mental strain that's put on young people, and you're expected to function normally, is really, really crazy. I could tell you 100 stories which I won't go into too much, but there's countless times, for example, police coming to the school, or friends, families, or neighbours calling the cops on my mum because something's gone in a hypomania episode or in her mania. And I recommend, if anyone's seen someone have a manic episode, it's probably one of the scariest things I've ever seen. It's very distressing. My mum, because of the ECT over the years, they do say ECT has no cause on deterioration of the brain, but I don't believe that for a fact. My mum's 60 now, but she got diagnosed with dementia, early on stage of dementia at 59. And I would say that's a lot due to medication and to the ECT. And to the mismanagement of the condition over the years, which is not the fault of anyone really. It's just about bipolar. It's such a full-on condition, and schizophrenic is the same. But the point I'm trying to make is that these platforms like Beyond Blue, let's say Black Dog Institute, all these ones who are doing greater work with mental health awareness, they never, ever, ever talk about children who are forced. They have to. You're forced to do it. The responsible thing to do is to take the kid out of the situation, to give the kid stability, consistency. Even though, I love my mum, I love the bits. I talk to my mum all the time. But the amount of trauma that, and that's a lifelong burden. I'm my mum's, for example, medical guardian still. I make decisions. I have to go to VCAT to make a decision for her on behalf. I deal a lot with the caseworker still. It's a lifelong thing that affects kids, and you shouldn't be doing it because your parent should be your mentor. It shouldn't be the other way around. You got all these young carers in the community. They get no financial assistance, and I would love to know how many times someone with a bipolar parent or schizophrenic parent has stopped their parent from going to commit suicide. No one knows about it. I would love to know how many times that happens, and if anyone's watching this and can put it in the comments, I'd appreciate it. But this is something that I'm really passionate about, and I'm thankful for allowing me to speak and use this platform in a way to do it, because it's something that needs to happen a bit more often. The one in Victoria, Satellite Foundation, but there's not too many others that I know of in Australia who address this, and if they do address it, they get minimal funding, and it's been done at their own bat. So if I urge to anyone who's watching this, lobby those mental health platforms which do have the platforms like your Beyond Blues and that, even though their core is depression, anxiety, and mental health awareness. This issue, and the great thing about it is you can have an impact now. Mental health research and that is great, but you can have an impact now. You can go up to a kid. What I would recommend should happen is that there needs to be reform with social workers and within psychiatrists with how they treat kids as soon as a kid is identified or children identified in it. Because the best experiences I had during the whole time growing up with this was from the police, believe it or not. I was always condescended and patronised by psychiatrists. Social workers were don't care because they're overworked and all that sort of stuff. The police were probably the most caring people I had, which is amazing people once. But the WA and Victorian police were always the best and most sympathetic. And mental health nurses, the mental health nurse people, they should be on $300,000 a year for the amount of garbage that they have to put up with in those places. It's the toughest job, and the funding to those sectors is not good. To give you an example, in Warrnambool's gone from when you started a place called Briley, which was 200 beds. Now I think we've got 15 beds. Why the cut when it's going up like this? You know what I mean? And government says, we spend all this stuff on mental health. That's fine, but they do not spend it in this area. And as I said, 23% of children in Victoria are living at this moment with someone, a primary carer or a parent who has a mental illness. And you wouldn't know about it until I told you about it. Now, a lot of people, when I tell my story, I don't tell it to many, but they go to me, you've done so well. Well, it's not something, what are you supposed to do? You either be resilient or you wither away in those situations. And I wouldn't change my childhood for anything, because I think it taught me a lot of things in terms of resilience, working hard, and not trying to be victim of circumstance. So for me, and now having a platform now, and I think I'm very adaptable, because when you have inconsistency in your childhood where, all right, I'm at home, now I'm in a stranger's house, I'm at the police station, I'm in a psych ward, you're seeing all these distressing, traumatic events, you have a really good ability to be very strong. But the downside of that is you have an ability not to shut down and not talk to anyone, because for me, I was conditioned for I don't like psychiatrists or psychologists, because they were the person who would take my mum away, and that's quite a common experience for most people. But I also think lived experience. So what they call children who grew up in my situation, my sister, they call us lived experts now, or they call us lived experience. And I think that there should be, once a child is identified living in one of these situations, they should be automatically allocated to someone with lived experience who's an adult. And all it takes is basically, doesn't need to be money. It means maybe once a month or once every couple of weeks, the lived experience person might take a group of them or go meet them in a neutral venue, obviously for certain reasons, and just tell them their stories and say, right, you're going through a crappy situation. It's not normal. I went through that, and I am. But what you've got to do is you can't let it down. You can't get angry at your mum. This is what bipolar is. This is what schizophrenia is. And actually talk to them like adults, because they see things in the home, or they experience things in the home which most adults will never experience. Yet treat them like kids. They're not kids. They're young adults from a very early age. But I think having mentors and having people with lived experience actually assigned to kids, especially in regional areas. Cities are a bit different. There is people like Satellite Foundation in city, and they do bring kids from regional areas, but regional areas where it suffers the most. So once that's identified, and obviously social workers, I can't remember having a social worker really allocated to us for an extensive period of time at all, which definitely hurt. But my advice to anyone in this thing is start, when you do all these donations and these fundraising for Beyond Blue and that, they are great. However, I would say Google children of parents with mental illness. I would say look up a foundation in your state. I would say probably allocate your money towards that if you can. I'm not saying one's more important than the other. I'm just saying that the work that they can do in this field can directly change the course of a kid's future. You know, if you can grab a kid at 8 years old and say, right, I've been in your situation, they can see, like, this guy's a man, he knows what I'm going through with my old girl or whatever, and he's gone on to do this, right, I'm gonna block out this, I'm gonna work hard, I'm gonna focus. You know, that's immense. It doesn't seem like much, it doesn't take much, but that doesn't happen. And there are foundations like Satellite Foundation and ones like this that are sort of trying to bridge gaps between parents and young people in the community, and that's my experience with it. And I'm very passionate about it because, as I said, there's hardly any awareness about it. So I appreciate what you're doing in regards to your mental health research, because it's as you said, it started off with your biohistory, and it's now morphed into mental health because it's something you're passionate about because the franchise's experience. I've obviously told you my experience with it, and obviously you hope that your work can obviously help alleviate future generations of it.
One of the things you've seen is a common problem is that people deal with the symptoms of these illnesses. Things like electroconvulsive therapy, which is hardly known how or why it works, lithium, and you get a habituation problem. Actually makes more. There's a wonderful book called Anatomy of an Epidemic, which is talking about the kinds of crises about the drugs people use to treat mental illness, which is why I think it's all the more important to do. I think what you're saying is great, and it's important to look after the kids, but it's also very important to try and look at the root causes of these things too. So if we can take away what's bringing them about in the first place, that may be the best approach, I believe.
Yeah, I definitely think that is the way to go. But I think in terms of the welfare side of it, I think impact can be made now. You know, as I said, you got a bunch of kids in these homes. First, make sure they're safe. You know, it's not always the safest environment living with someone who's bipolar, schizophrenic, and maybe every week threatens to do suicide or something like that. And the annoying thing for me is, I knew my mum really well, so I could tell when she was about to, you know, go off the rails. I knew it, but no, they won't treat anything until the cops are called. So I couldn't call the cops. I would tell my uncle. I could tell my aunt, you know, she's not well at the moment. We try and tell them, no, we've got to wait until she gets so bad we call the cops. Then we have, you know what I mean? Like, that's how much of a strain there is on the system at the moment, which is quite frustrating for me. But I appreciate you allowing me to speak, and I appreciate all the work you're doing in it. So maybe 2 years you're saying, or 1 to 2 years you're looking at starting to do some trials?
I'm hoping we're going to have some treatments that we're going to be able to test on humans within that time.
Yeah. Okay. So people want to find out more about that sort of stuff. Is it ISN, your clinic, or where can they actually look this stuff up? Biohistory as well?
There's not a lot about the mental illness itself, but the biohistory.org is where there's some videos that shows how the basic thing works.
And we have that on Meet Gym as well. So if you click the Meet Gym tab on gyms.net, scroll to the bottom, we've got the 1, 2, 3, 4 stages of video.
But I hope we'll have more with time to come. We'll do more.
Yeah, and hopefully do something on the mental health stuff a bit more, because you're starting to do the clinic. We can do some content around that, and you can put some content on your website and exactly what you're trying to do. I think it's important for people to know, because on the online thing I see all the time, it's Jim's, you know, greedy rich man or whatever. But I know for a fact that you put a lot of your money into trying to make the world a better place, and especially in regards to mental illness. You know, and anything you can do to help future generations in regards to this would be great. You know. And we appreciate how much money and effort you do put in it and your time today. So,
all right,
thanks, Jim.